Coming up on Locked On Dodgers, Shohei Ohtani has twice been scheduled to hit live BP. He has not yet done it. We'll talk about whether that's any cause for concern. Yoshinobu Yamamoto did throw live BP, and it went really, really well. We'll talk about some of the glowing reviews from his teammates and manager. And the Dodgers signed Justin Wilson, a left-handed reliever, to a minor league contract. We will talk about that and answer an insider question about what the bullpen would look like if the season started today. And that's what's on tap, so let's get Locked On Dodgers.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Dodger fans, this is Locked On Dodgers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks to our everydayers for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning. Remember, this show is free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube simply by searching for Locked On Dodgers. Please subscribe wherever you're watching and listening right now. My name is Jeff Snyder. My co-host is Vince Samperio. Vince and I are both lifelong Dodger fans, just like a lot of you. We've also both spent time covering the Dodgers in the press box and the locker room, so we're not quite insiders, but we bring you the smart fans perspective on our boys in blue every weekday morning. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. New customers, join today and you'll get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. And Vince, it's a special week here at Locked On Dodgers. As I'm sure you know, it's your birthday week. And by the end of this week, Vince will be 33 years old. We started podcasting together when you were 25. You were just a kid. Your brain wasn't even fully developed yet, maybe barely fully developed. And now, 8 years later, here we are going strong, still talking Dodgers, doing it more often now. We used to just do it once a week like losers, but now we do it 5 days a week and have a ton of fun doing it. So happy pre-birthday.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm a grizzled veteran now. So
yeah, you are. Next thing you know, you have some gray in that beard, and then you can really be one of us. So.
Yeah, one of us.
Yeah, I guess I was already 38 when we started podcasting together. So, you still got a ways to go to catch up to me, but you're a lot closer than that than you used to be. So
yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Shohei Ohtani. I don't know if you heard of him. Dodgers signed him this offseason, kind of a big star. And he's a hitter and a pitcher. He won't be pitching this year. And so, in a way, this spring is maybe a little bit less crazy than a lot of them will be for him going forward in the future. But it is still pretty crazy because he's coming off of not only a major arm surgery, but also an oblique injury late last season. And so coming back from a couple injuries, he's taken batting practice on the field and looked great doing it. But he hasn't yet faced live pitching in batting practice, even though he's been on the schedule to do it twice. Maybe that's just to get our excitement level up. But Sunday, again, for the second time, he was on the schedule and then he didn't do it. And the explanation, there's no cause for concern. He's still taking batting practice. There's no health reason for it. It's simply just a matter of Shohei Ohtani, because of his rehab schedule on the injury, plus getting ready to hit. It's kind of weird rehabbing from an arm surgery as a pitcher while also getting ready to play a Major League Baseball season as a DH. He's just busy. And so the schedule hasn't worked out for him to take live BP yet. But I know for me, I know they probably didn't intend to do it this way, but the anticipation has been really good for me. I'm really excited to see it when it finally does happen.
Yeah, we weren't expecting him to have batting practice or full batting practice last week. He ended up doing it, has been continued to put on a show in normal, regular batting practice. And then, it was the beat reporters kind of report on what they're given in the morning when they get to Camelback Ranch. And a couple of times Ohtani's name has been on that and he hasn't done it. And they asked him about it. And he said, just not on my schedule or whatever the wording is. We did get note that he might not play in the Cactus League opener on Thursday, but should be playing shortly after that. So again, there's no real issue for concern. But yeah, it's one of those where we haven't seen too much of the live BP yet. We've seen a lot of regular batting practice. We've seen a lot of guys throwing their bullpens. We'll talk about Yamamoto in the next segment, but we haven't necessarily seen it. I'm sure when Ohtani's up, we're going to get that angle of him hitting live BP and whoever he's hitting off of, it will all eyes on them and Ohtani. So it'll be kind of interesting for whoever's pitching to him. But yeah, I mean, it's exciting. Every new piece of Ohtani rehab movement, content we get to see, whatever it is, just gets you that much more into it. Like, oh man, I want to see this, I want to see that, I want to see that. And like you said, without even the pitching part added to it, that's so we'll get that excitement all again next spring when we get to see him pitch for the first time.
Yeah, next spring it'll be Shohei scheduled to throw live BP, and will he or won't he? But I think the thing we as fans probably need to keep in mind and remember is that Ohtani's goal has nothing to do with this week, taking live BP or playing in the first Cactus League game or any of that. Shohei's goal is to be ready to play on March 20th or whatever it is when the Dodgers play the Padres in Korea in the first game that actually matters. And so everything he's doing is working towards that. I do wonder if the Dodgers might start putting an asterisk or something on that schedule when Shohei does show up on the live BP schedule, simply, subject to change, or like
it does say that, I think. One of the B guys said that it says that.
I think at the bottom it says schedule subject to change, but I wonder if they'll start putting something specifically next to Shohei's name, scheduled, but maybe not, because it does get reported as he's on the schedule, and and maybe, like I said, it does build the anticipation, and they say no publicity, or all publicity is good publicity, no such thing as bad publicity, whatever you want to call it. And so, yeah, it is going to be exciting when it does happen. You mentioned the first Cactus League games this week. It's kind of interesting because the Dodgers and Padres were the first two teams to report to spring. They're going to be the two teams that are ready to play spring games the earliest too. And so first couple spring games will be against each other because nobody else is going to be ready to play. So, it'll be fun this week. We'll actually get to watch some Dodger baseball. It was against the Padres last year that Gavin Lux tore his ACL. And so, it's Gavin Lux revenge game, maybe, who only time will tell.
Yeah, I saw that on Instagram this weekend. You might see a former friend of the show, Zach Rex, is in Padres camp. I'm assuming on a minor league deal, invite to spring training. So, rooting for him because Padres don't have outfielders, so he'll have a chance to find his way onto that roster.
Yeah, absolutely. We talked about that the other day. The Padres, very few outfielders on their roster, and if you only go with outfielders who are good at hitting, they have even fewer. I think one. Yeah. So, but we're talking about live BP. Shohei hasn't hit it yet, but Yoshinobu Yamamoto did throw live BP this week, and glowing reviews from a lot of different people. Basically, everybody who saw it, including at least one guy who saw it up close and personal from the batter's box. So we're going to come back in a second. We're going to talk about Yamamoto's live BP and the comments about that. So thanks for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen, and please keep it Locked On Dodgers. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Get buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. We had the NBA All-Star festivities this weekend, and the dunk contest. If you got inspired last year by Mac McClung's victory in the slam dunk contest, you might have put your $5 bet on him just to get your bonus bets. And guess what? That would have got you 150 free bucks because Mac McClung won again. And maybe next year you can bet on whether the slam dunk contest will be worth watching at all. And if you bet no, you might win that one too. But you can bet on all your favorite NBA players and teams with quick bets, live same-game parlays, exclusive props, and more. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and shoot your shot. FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NBA. Hey, we're back on, and thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning, especially our everydayers. Thank you for being an everydayer. If you're not an everydayer, it's easy to become one. Just watch or listen every weekday morning. And the easy way to do that is to subscribe wherever you're watching and listening right now. In fact, subscribe somewhere to watch and somewhere to listen both, and then you can do both every day. Be a double everydayer. And but either way, it's fun to do, and we appreciate you. You can also become a Locked On Dodgers insider by going to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers. It's just a few bucks a month. You can support us financially, but also get text blasts from us when news breaks or when there's rumors. And you can text back and forth with us, ask us questions. We get back to you. It's a lot of fun texting back and forth with our insiders. Our third segment today is going to be based on a question from an insider over there at Subtext. So check that out. And also, please check out Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Sports Los Angeles, the two 24/7 streaming channels on YouTube from the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And with that said, the Dodgers did have a lot of live BP again this week, and we saw several pitchers throwing live BP, but the one that generated the most buzz was, of course, Yoshinobu Yamamoto, the second biggest free agent signing of the offseason. He's getting he has a bigger contract than any starting pitcher in baseball history, despite the fact that he is 25 years old and has never thrown a pitch in the major leagues. But he has now thrown pitches to major leaguers, and those major leaguers were pretty darn impressed. Freddie Freeman, most of all, he was the most, at least the most quoted in his excitement about Yamamoto. The quick quote that went around on Twitter, he said, "That's some crazy stuff. I'm glad he's on our team. That's command I've never seen. Every pitch is intended in a quadrant." And Freddie went on and said, I went up to him and I said, "Please say incredible in Japanese." That was incredible. It was just very impressive. The whole package, the calmness to be able to execute when everyone's watching you is very, very impressive. And Freddie Freeman is a pretty darn good hitter, Vince. He's won batting titles. He's come close to winning other batting titles. He's a former MVP. And just gushing praise. And obviously, I mean, they're teammates. He's going to say nice things about him, but this is above and beyond, "Oh yeah, good stuff." This isn't cliche baseball stuff. This is gushing.
Yeah. And, realistically, what we kind of thought were he has a lot of different pitches and he uses it. And I think the impressive part and kind of the part that sets him above other people is the command. He can put it where he wants. And that's kind of what Freddie said, whatever quadrant he wanted it, that's where it was. Whatever pitch it was, that's where he put it. And, to impress Freddie Freeman, obviously, he's going to say positive things about anybody that was on that mound. But to go above and beyond, to, kind of go up and tell him about it. There was reports that there was a little ovation after he threw his live BP, like that, everybody was excited about it. And for him, we talked about him adjusting to the baseball. We talked about him adjusting to the, a new-ish routine, which, could be good for him because he gets to do kind of his own terms and whatever he wants. And that's great. So I think with all that, all eyes on you type of deal as well, to go out there and just do what you're expected to do is impressive in itself. And then when on top of that, the stuff is good enough to impress Freddie Freeman, who's a career 300 hitter, I think it just adds to the mystique of this Dodger team, because even though we know Yamamoto, we can say everything we want about him, we haven't seen him face major league pitching. We know Glasnow was mentioned hitting 99, sitting 97 in his bullpens. We don't know if he's going to be able to stay healthy, and if he, whatever the case is, there's a lot of little mistakes here and there, but so far all reports have been positive, and it just keeps on building that train of excitement that we already have.
Yeah, and in addition to Freeman, the batters that Yamamoto faced was Mookie Betts, Austin Barnes, Max Muncy, Jason Hayward, and Manuel Margot. And like you said, Mookie joined in a standing ovation for Yamamoto when he was done. And according to Dodger Insider, he says Freeman's, Muncy's, and Hayward's words after facing Yamamoto all had a common theme. The pitches were impressive, but the poise in pitching with all the attention on him was special. And one of my favorite quotes in this article on Dodger Insider was from Yamamoto himself. He said, "It was good for me to have an opportunity to face actual hitters. This is not the best yet. I'm going to keep adjusting what I need, and then it's going to keep getting better." And obviously, in a way, that's almost goes without saying that his first live BP of the spring isn't going to be his best stuff. But when everybody else is just gushing about how good he was, I kind of love that he has the confidence to say, "I'm going to get better."
Yeah, and realistically, that's how he's going to be, or that's how anyone will kind of be. But he knows that he can be better. He knows, I think velocity-wise, once you get the adrenaline of the game, that's going to amp up. And if you can keep your command and control with your velocity going up in the actual game, that's just going to add to it. And, I think Glasnow said it when they asked him about how it felt. He struck out somebody, maybe Mookie or somebody, and they kind of asked him about it. And and he said, "Yeah, we're ahead of hitters right now anyway, so like not a big deal." And pitchers are normally ahead of hitters because hitters need about 30-40 at bats to kind of get their way under, and pitchers are realistically throwing the same thing. Now, when hitters are in front of them, they're a little bit different mentality, but the actual movements and everything is kind of the same. It doesn't matter if there's a hitter in there or not. But for Yamamoto, like we're not entirely sure what his offseason was in terms of him working out and everything else, but knowing that he probably had a more intense offseason than normal because he does, will be in a 5-man rotation rather than pitching once a week, even though the Dodgers will try to get him that. But I think there's just a lot there. And like I said, we're just with all the eyeballs on him. And I'm sure, we've seen Japanese media. There's a lot of them. And in Japan, even, I would imagine even more so. So I'm sure he's used to having that eyes. But I think just the pressure, the 300 mil, everything there, even though that hasn't been really mentioned at all, but it's still there.
Yeah, for sure. Dave Roberts, the manager, he felt pretty good about it too after watching it. His quote was funny. He says, "I'm very confident that he can be a frontline starter. I think the first thing I see is his ability to command the baseball with his fastball. He can throw to all quadrants. Then you look at the pitch mix, the weapons that he has, fastball, curveball, slider, the split, and to be able to throw those for strikes to get left-handed hitters out, right-handed hitters out. And the last part, he's very intelligent, very curious, and he's going to be prepared and understand how to attack major league hitters." That's probably a little more cliche, along the lines of what you would expect a manager to say about a guy after his first bullpen. But it's also like, it's a lot more specific words, it's not just oh yeah, he looked good out there, but like the specifics. And I mean, the pitch mix seems to really excite Roberts. When you look at, he mentioned specifically platoon splits and being able to get guys out from both sides of the plate. That's a huge deal. And he does have the weapons to do that. So all in all, like, just, I'm excited to watch him pitch in real games, in a month from now. But even just once he pitches in a spring game, sometime in the next, you assume in the next couple weeks, at least, it should be a lot of fun to watch him face guys who aren't wearing the same uniform as him and watch him attack them that way.
The other part that was mentioned was PitchCom. They did use PitchCom for the live BP. Will Smith was catching them, I believe, and was calling the pitches, which is another like little wrinkle that you don't necessarily think about. I hadn't thought about it at all, really, until it was kind of mentioned. And it's good for him and Will to get on the same page and know that it's hard to call pitches for someone, one, you don't necessarily know very well, two, some of the language difficulties you may have, and then three, with so many pitches to throw, like what do you like to throw 1-2? What do you like to throw 2? What do you like to do to get ahead in the count? What do you like to do when you're behind in the count? Like, there's a lot of different things to kind of get into. So regardless of how this first batting practice went, it's one of those things that you think about, like, okay, the first few times through when he does pitch against other hitters, to take it with a grain of salt, but also, if it was clean this time, when it shouldn't be too much different once they're trying to actually get guys out.
Yeah. Spring training, it's always easy to overreact to good or bad things. And we're going to do our best here to not overreact, but also, it's exciting. And so what we are going to react strongly to is the excitement of having our Dodgers back on the field, while trying not to overreact to the actual specific results for any individual player, and especially win-loss record for the team during spring. We're not going to worry about that at all. But the excitement of seeing these guys back on the mound, in the batter's box, all that. Tyler Glasnow threw a live BP and was hitting 99, I think. So not bad for first spring for him. Obviously the stuff has never been the question with Glasnow. It's just a question of how many times can he use that stuff in any given season. So, but Glasnow is exciting too.
Yeah, specifically on the record part, I think the Angels are back-to-back Cactus League champions right now. So, don't worry about that.
Well, let's put it this way. Shohei's back-to-back Cactus League champions. So let's make it 3 in a row, Shohei.
There you go.
We're going to come back in a minute. We're going to talk about the Dodgers bullpen based on a question from a Locked On Dodgers insider, and also a free agent signing the Dodgers made over the weekend. So thanks for making us your first listen, and please keep it Locked On Dodgers. This episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more, whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Hey, we are back here at Locked On Dodgers. We want to thank you again for making us your first listen. Thanks again to our everydayers. Remember to become a Locked On Dodgers insider at joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers. It's just a few bucks a month with a free 14-day trial, and it's super fun texting back and forth with us, getting our thoughts on all sorts of Dodger stuff before it hits the podcast, and some stuff that never hits the podcast because it's more of a, hey, let's text our insider stuff than let's make a 8-minute segment out of it on a podcast. So a lot of fun over there. So check that out. And be sure to go to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Sports Los Angeles, the two 24/7 streaming channels on YouTube from the Locked On Podcast Network. And with that said, we have a question from one of our insiders. I actually put out a call over there on the insiders a couple weeks ago for some questions, and then the Dodgers ended up, we've got word that day that Clayton Kershaw was coming back to the Dodgers, so that kind of stole our news cycle. But we have these questions that we're going to get to periodically, and this one fits in well. It's from Seth, one of our insiders, and he asked, what would the bullpen look like if the season started tomorrow? And the reason that this one fits in well today, Vince, is because the Dodgers actually made a transaction this weekend that added to that bullpen. They signed Justin Wilson, a left-handed reliever who was actually originally drafted by the Dodgers out of high school, but didn't sign, went to college, and he's kind of been a on-again, off-again target for the Dodgers for years. I mean, I remember hearing about him when he was on the Tigers and how he was maybe a trade deadline acquisition possibility for the Dodgers. He had never come over until now. He had Tommy John surgery in 2022, and then last year he was recovered from Tommy John, was about to come in a game. He's literally warming up in the bullpen, and what was it?
It was a lat
strain, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Something, not the Tommy John, not the elbow injury, but another injury that knocked him out for the rest of that season. And so he hasn't pitched in the big leagues in close to 2 years. But when he's pitched throughout his career, he's been pretty good.
Yeah, it was just to note, minor league deal, invite to spring training. So, realistically, probably not, or I mean, he's a candidate to be on the opening day roster, but we'll see how far along he is in his, recovery still, I guess, from last year, and how far along he is not having. I mean, he only missed a few days of actual camp, but whatever. Either way, yeah, for him, he's been good when he's been able to pitch. Like you mentioned, the Dodgers have been linked to him a couple of times. And, seems like a perfect Dodger, right? Has Tommy John, check. Got hurt, some kind of interesting way, check. There are different things to kind of look into. But not everyone, a lot of people have been clamoring for left-hander. The Dodgers need a left-hander. They didn't get anybody on, major league deals. They have Alex Vesia, and that's pretty much it after trading Ferguson and Gonzalez this offseason. And, we talked about how left-hander doesn't necessarily matter too much as long as we have somebody that can get guys out from both sides of the plate. And we talked about who those guys were in Joe Kelly and Ryan Brazier and Brusdar Graterol. But so we have a guy that does throw left-handed that has had success and is a very, low-risk type of deal that also fits the Dodgers' forte of how they do things, how they operate, and how their bullpen works. So if he's a guy, like I said, if he can be healthy, I think he can help this team for sure at some point down the road if it's not on opening day.
Yeah, and you mentioned getting both sides out. And one of the hallmarks of Wilson's career, unlike Alex Vesia, is that he has been effective against right-handers too. He's almost exactly, in fact, he's slightly better against right-handed batters than left-handed batters. He's been good against both sides throughout his career. Obviously, that fluctuates from year to year, but overall, he's been really good against righties and lefties, and that could give him an advantage. Obviously, Vesia has the advantage of already being on the 40-man roster, And so, like you said, you would guess that Wilson probably starts in AAA. We don't know. We haven't seen details, so we don't know if there's like one of those opt-out dates. If I'm not on the roster by a certain date, I can opt out. But I mean, I think back to Brandon Morrow in 2017. Dodgers signed him to a minor league deal. He didn't debut with the team until Memorial Day. I mean, that's almost 2 full months into the season.
And even then, kind of forced by that due date.
Yeah. And that's why he got put on, because he had an opt-out date. And then, boom, he ended up being maybe the most important reliever for the Dodgers that season. I mean, Kenley Jansen was elite that year too. And yes, we're talking about regular season. I don't want to talk about it. But, obviously it's probably asking too much for Justin Wilson to be this year's Brandon Morrow. But, that kind of depth in AAA where you've got a guy who is a legitimate big leaguer, and it probably, because he is coming back from injury and everything, it's probably a good enough reason that everybody understands, okay, why don't you start in Oklahoma City for us? But then there's going to be injuries. There's going to be, just up and down movement like the Dodgers do. And they do still have at least a little bit of room on their 40-man roster, because you do still have both Nick Frasso and Clayton Kershaw who can go on the 60-day IL if necessary. One of those spots will be needed for Daniel Hudson, assuming Hudson gets ready. Dave Roberts said that Hudson is going to be on the opening day roster if he's ready. And he's not currently on the 40. So that would take one of those spots, but that still leaves you one more spot. So if Justin Wilson earns a spot, and when you look at, now that we know that the Dodgers aren't going to do a true 6-man rotation, they are going to have 8 guys in the bullpen. And we don't know how many of them will be long reliever types, of the Ryan Yarbrough and Michael Grove type. If both of those guys are in the bullpen, then we are down to 6 true relievers. And then you start, there's just so many question marks about the bullpen, because Blake Treinen's health, Daniel Hudson's health, JP Fireeyes' health, Ricky Vanasco. What is Ricky Vanasco? Like, we don't really know. I haven't seen much about him yet this spring. We know the Dodgers signed him to a major league deal, but all that means is that he's on the 40-man roster. It doesn't mean he's going to be in the big leagues, but he was like really, really, really good after he came over to the Dodgers in AAA last year. And so, there's so many potential guys, but also there's so much potential for spots to be available for a guy like Justin Wilson. So kind of intriguing. And, like we talked about a little bit, maybe the most intriguing, obviously not the most important storyline of the spring, but the most intriguing, because we know who's going to be the Dodgers starting DH. We know who's going to play first base and second base, and pretty much all the positions. There's little question about who's going to play where in the outfield, but we know the names at least, and we know there's questions about the order of the starting rotation, but we have a pretty good grasp on who's going to be in the starting rotation. We have no idea what the bullpen's going to look like, though.
Yeah, we know Evan Phillips, we know Brusdar Graterol, we know Joe Kelly. Those are the 3 for sure. Ryan Brazier. And then, Roberts mentioned Blake Treinen being on there, Daniel Hudson being on there if they're healthy. And as far as we know, Treinen and Fireeyes are healthy coming into it 100%. Obviously getting back into game, being able to pitch in games again and everything else is a different matter, but they are healthy in terms of their arm. Daniel Hudson's starting a little bit slow, but still should work his way back. So then right there, you got 6, that are kind of for sure or have been mentioned by Roberts. And then that's without Vesia, that's without Vanasco, that's without,
Yarbrough and
Grove. That's without some of these other guys. Now Justin Wilson added to that mix of guys that are available. But kind of what we've seen and what's good for a bullpen, especially with the Dodgers, is you don't know year to year who's going to remain good or who's going. And, health is obviously one thing, but you don't know who's going to remain good. Vesia last year, kind of struggled at the beginning, picked it up toward the end, but still wasn't quite what we had grown accustomed to the year before that. He talked at FanFest just kind of how he did have to adjust to the pitch clock, and it was kind of a thing, him working his way, finding his new timing, everything else, whatever. Full year now, full off season. He in theory should be better now if that was one of the reasons that he struggled a little bit last year. But if he does struggle again, he's could find his way off the 26-man roster and other people could step up. So there is a lot of questions, but there is a lot of depth and good depth. Like I said, if Justin Wilson and Ricky Vanasco and these guys are in OKC, that means your bullpen up top is pretty good.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is, going back to what we talked about last week with the rumors about Kenley Jansen. This is kind of why they don't make a lot of sense, because Dodgers aren't really like, the question is who among our 13 options is going to be in our 8-man bullpen, not how are we going to find 8 relievers, and it's I sometimes sit here and think like Ryan Yarbrough, he still just doesn't fit the Dodgers roster in my mind so much. I wonder if it's a case of the Dodgers kind of waiting to see, okay, what team is going to have an starter go down with an injury this spring, and who will give us a couple prospects for Ryan Yarbrough. Like, the Dodgers aren't generally the team who trades a veteran for prospects, but a guy like Yarbrough, who's kind of extraneous to their needs, could do a lot to help them rebuild their farm system if somebody goes down with injury somewhere else in the league.
Yeah, they have depth at starter. They have depth at reliever. He is a guy that can fill both of those sides, but also doesn't necessarily scream that he should be on the opening day roster for either of those sides.
Yeah, and nothing against him. He actually pitched pretty well, other than his last game or two with I know he got lit up in his last or second to last game with the Dodgers, gave up like 9 runs or something. But other than that, his ERA was like just over 3, like 3.4, I think, with the Dodgers. But it's stuff wise, he doesn't match up with a lot of what the Dodgers can throw out there in the starting rotation. So that'll be an interesting one to see. But so I guess Insider Seth, the answer to your question, what would the bullpen look like? It's but it's going to be fun to watch. And that's
3 names.
Yeah, four. You forgot Ryan Brazier.
Goodness.
Yeah, that's twice now. You've forgotten Brazier. Man, he's never going to come on the podcast. But I'm excited to see it, because I do think the bullpen is going to be pretty good, however it shakes out.
Yeah.
I think that'll do it for us today. You got anything else, Vince?
Nothing else. We are in game week now. There's a game on Thursday and Friday and over the weekend. So we get to see these guys actually on our TV playing baseball.
First game on Thursday, Vince's birthday on Friday. What a week, my friends.
What a time.
What a time. Well, that'll do it for us. Thank you all for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning. Especially thank you to our everydayers. If you're not an everydayer, please become one by watching or listening every weekday morning. You can also become a Locked On Dodgers insider. Go to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers. You can sign up for just a few bucks a month with a 14-day free trial. You'll get text blasts from us, and you can reply. We'll text back and forth to you one-on-one. It's a lot of fun, so check that out. Also, check out Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Sports Los Angeles, the 2 24/7 streaming channels on YouTube from the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. You can follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at Locked On Dodgers. Vince is on Twitter at VinceSince91. I'm on Twitter at Snydog. Our DMs are open over there. You can also email us, lockedondodgers@gmail.com, or shoot us a voicemail or a text message at 323-863-LOCK5625. We are here every weekday morning, and we hope you'll be here with us. When you get in your car or sit on your couch, tell your smart device to play podcast Locked On Dodgers. And remember, you don't have to agree. You just have to listen. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
Have a good one.